we are, continuing on our journey through bluegrass. Anybody recap to us the instruments that we've seen so far in this since we started? Yeah, Ryan.
Mandolin, bass, fiddle, dobro.
Well, I mean, since we've started so far, who has come to see us?
We had a banjo, a guy who had a bass, and one other person who had a guitar.
Okay, right.
I'm dobro.
And what was the last one we saw?
Dobro.
Or what's another name for it? Resonator guitar, right? So here we have the privilege of having Terry and Kalia from the Bluegrass state of Alaska, right?
And her name is Hawaiian.
Ah, Kalia, okay.
From Alaska, go figure.
Terry is from this area, right?
Yes.
Okay.
My part.
And Kalia is a freshman at Vassar College, and you know Lynn Lipton. So they were generous enough to come here today and talk to us about the fiddle and how that fits into bluegrass music. And I guess the first question I have is what is the role of the fiddle within the structure of bluegrass music, and maybe you can start there and then see where that takes us. But how would you approach a bluegrass song as far as fiddle is concerned?
Fiddle is it's a featured instrument. It's one of the forefront. Generally, guitar and bass provide the foundation for the tunes themselves, and the focus instruments are generally banjo and fiddle, primarily. You play the melody, you put it out there, and we just played a tune called Angeline the Baker. Old tune, I don't know who wrote it, but it's been out there for decades. You'll notice that we both kind of had a little bit of difference in the way we played it. It's personal interpretation. Music is interpretive. It's how you feel about it. Little things, little nuances that you want to add to it. But the fiddle itself, it's just one of those things that I love the fiddle. I love the sound. I love the things that you can do with it. Real hard instrument. Probably one of the hardest instruments out there, because unlike guitar, mandolin, banjo, we don't have any frets. We don't have anything here to keep us in perfect pitch. So you end up developing an amazing ear and very, very precise measuring by your fingers. You know, I'm starting to kind of wander off into another direction here.
No, that's okay, yeah. I noticed that it sort of had a almost Celtic or Irish, you know, sort of feel to the melody. I mean, is a lot of the is there a similarity between the role of the, you know, fiddle in that, in the sort of roots where it came from, in the Irish music, and then
sure, because bluegrass is, you know, a thoroughly American music, but it's a hybrid. It was developed by way of Celtic music and
And the blues, we have the blues.
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yep, and then Scottish stuff, it's like a mixture of all sorts of different things. And so yeah, definitely, you can hear little bits of Irish stuff when you play bluegrass. Yeah, definitely.
Does anybody have any questions that are coming to mind before we hear maybe something else from these guys? Yeah, Scott.
Yeah, Fiddle, is that any different than a violin, or is it sort of the same, or what's the...
Well, I'll start it off and I'll let Kalia finish it off. Again, as I started out by saying, because music is interpretation. Fiddle versus violin, I interpret fiddle as a slang term. When you hear violin, you think of classically trained, you know, very intense practicing and getting everything just so right. And fiddle is, to me, again, interpretation. Fiddle to me is a much looser approach. It's more something that kind of comes from down in here, and it's probably less disciplined. You just, you know, you fiddle around with something rather than actually working at something. I mean, fiddling is still work nonetheless, but it's more fun to me. Again, this is my opinion. I love fiddling. I'm not really big on violin playing. But
Violining.
I like to say that there's no difference between a violin and a fiddle. They are the exact same instrument themselves. This is a violin and a fiddle. And so it's more like the type of music that you play, I guess. Yeah.
Does he have a question?
How long have you been playing?
I started when I was 4 years old. I was super little, with a little tiny violin too. And yeah, but I've done fiddling and classical stuff the whole time. So.
I didn't start quite so early, but I've got a lot more years on her. So, I kind of half-heartedly started to pick it up when I was in my late teens. Kind of fiddled around with it, so to speak, for about 10 years, and then I put it down for a while, which was probably a good thing because I had no training, and fiddle players are very much in demand. It's hard to find a fiddle player. If you want to really stick out there, pick up the fiddle. I don't see a lot of them, and I was, you know, Kalia and I just met last night. I've never met her before. She's terrific. But after putting it down for a while, I took it back up, and at that point, I had found somebody who could give me some good instruction. I learned a lot of bad habits in the beginning. I let some time erase that, and I started over again, and I'm very happy for that.
I'm sure they'd love to hear some more.
Yeah.
Maiden's Prayer and Faded Love. These are tunes that a lot of fiddlers love to play, a lot of bluegrass bands play them. It also gained a lot of notoriety from a style of country music called Western Swing. And they're very closely related. So
this is more slow stuff, right? So,
which one we want to start with first?
Maiden's Prayer.
Okay.
have any other questions? Yeah.
I had a question for the class. Any fiddlers or violin players in the group? Anybody learning it?
Nope, not really.
Just one? Are you into fiddling or strictly classical?
It's classical.
We're gonna win you over.
Yeah. So I notice you're, playing together. Is that a common scenario in a bluegrass band to have, two fiddlers?
It's great if you can. As I
Uh-huh.
said, fiddlers are like finding hen's teeth, so.
Right, yeah.
A lot of bluegrass bands struggle to find a good fiddler when they can find two. Wow, that's
Right.
like hitting a pot of gold.
And
Yeah.
will they generally, harmonize with one another? Or
Oh,
you-
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
And who here knows what that means to harmonize or to play harmony? Yeah, Adam.
One would play a melody and the other would play along with them, but not the same melody, usually like a different pitch
Uh-huh.
that goes along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call that twin fiddling sometimes when you have two fiddles.
Uh-huh.
together like that.
So you just met yesterday, so how would you approach playing with each other, like, taking a song, that's a known song, will you start by playing the melody, pretty similarly with each other and then kind of embellish it as you,
Sure, it's kind of a relaxed, laid-back
Mhm.
atmosphere. You get in there and you kind of get a sense to how the person you're playing with, what their style is, and then you just it's give and take. You lean in, you let somebody else, put out forth their idea.
Kind of like a pickup basketball game, in a sense, right?
There you go.
Yeah, other questions? Yes, Erica?
For some instruments, it's easier if you start on like something like simpler. Is that true with like the violin?
What do you mean?
Like if you for example, if you start like skiing, it's easier to snowboard if you start like skiing first. Is it easier if you start on something else then go to the violin?
Well, the fiddle's pretty unique, I would say. So, I don't know, are there other instruments that you think would help you with the fiddle?
I personally, I think it's incredibly helpful if you can play the piano. And you don't have to play the piano great, but the idea is, piano is a visual instrument. You are looking down at the keyboard and you can see those notes and you know where they're going. When you're holding a violin in your hand, you can't see where you are on the fretboard. Everything is done by feel. Collaboration between feel and hearing. With the piano, you can sit down and you can see the notes and you go, okay, this goes. I learn a lot of things on the piano and then transpose them to the violin first, just because it's easier. I can make the visual connection first. Because when you're playing, I can't see what's going on in here, but I can kind of see, while I'm playing this way, I can actually see this in my head.
Yeah. Adam?
Do you guys read music?
I don't. You're going to hear a lot of debate in the music world as to whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. Myself personally, I feel detriment. I wish that I had learned music. It's a little tough for me. I'm mildly dyslexic, so it's kind of hard for me to process what's on the page. But being able to read opens up all the secrets. It gives you the key right out there. And I've been told by a lot of people that strictly reading inhibits your ability to improvise. My daughter is a music major at college, and she plays the clarinet, and she can read like a whiz. But I sat down at the piano one night and said, honey, let's crank one out. And she was, I don't know how to do that. So take this information and see what you can do. Play with things. Let your imagination kind of take over a little bit. Take what learning the fundamentals of reading music and then add things to it. Be extremely broad-minded. That was a problem for me when I was a kid. I only liked what I liked and I wouldn't listen to other things. As I got older, I started to appreciate other types of music and started to figure out how they can be worked in. And that's what gives you your musical personality. I don't have the exact phrase, the exact statement, but Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass music, he said, bluegrass is old time, It's country, it's blues, it's jazz, it's Baptist, it's Methodist, it's Scottish bagpipes. It's everything, and it's a little bit of blend, and it's the way you feel it. So.
I have a question for Kalia.
Yeah.
Do you find at Vassar on the college campus, other kids you know who are into bluegrass?
Unfortunately, I haven't met too many people yet. I've met a few people that you know, like play a little bit of guitar, but not many bluegrassers. Not yet, anyway. But my hopes are out. I think they're out there soon.
Yeah, me too. Too many people here of my color playing bluegrass. More you guys getting into it.
We had a question back, yeah, Neil.
Are there any other types of instruments that you play?
I play a lot of instruments, not all very well, but I like to play the piano, I like to play the fiddle, play a little bit of guitar, play a little bit of upright bass. In bluegrass, it's nice because people seem to develop a versatility. I'll meet people and they go, oh yeah, well let's see, why don't you, I can play this if you need, as far as another instrument. And, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And as, when Mike said, it's kind of tough to see people with, a little gray here, but you know what? That's a nice thing about bluegrass music. You see these bands that were rock and roll icons in the 70s, and you see them up there still playing now, and you go, wow, that's kind of creepy seeing the old guy playing rock and roll, but a bluegrass guy, he just gets better with age.
Yes.
Wait, I'm sorry, I just wanted, do you play anything else, Kalia?
I can sort of dabble on the guitar and a little bit on the mandolin and the bass. And yeah, it's just, I've been around all of them so much that it's hard not to pick it up a little bit.
So you play bass too?
Not very well.
Yeah, Kanani.
What other kind of music is associated with bluegrass?
Associated with bluegrass. Well, we sort of talked about the fact that bluegrass is made up of so many different types of music, so they're sort of automatically associated in that way.
When Monroe started out, back in the 20s and 30s, it was old time and hillbilly and country. They were played, they had less of a flair to it. He took all these things and he kind of combined elements of them, and he threw in a ton of energy. And when you hear the term bluegrass, now we just played Faded Love and Maiden's Prayer. They're slower tunes. They're slower tunes, to all the music styles. But when you hear the term bluegrass, you kind of think of, upbeat, very happy, very bouncy music. It's a music that swings. It's a lot of emphasis on the 2 and the 4 beat, which is what gives music its swing. Music like funk is choppy. It's on the 1 and 3. 2 and 4, that's the stuff that kind of feels makes bounce.
Would you guys like to play another one?
Sure, what do we got here?
Let's play something faster like that.
Okay, how about Fisher's Hornpipes?
Okay.
They had to teach this to me last night.
And I know none of them. I'll just listen, and then maybe I'll join.
We're going to do this one fast, right?
what did, the name of that again was?
Fisher's hornpipe.
Can you explain what a hornpipe is to those who do not know?
Oh, I'm gonna pass that off to these guys.
Oh, that's the rhythm. You know,
Right.
and I'm not sure how many notes are in each measure for a hornpipe, do you know?
I don't know, but
Sure.
but even the term hornpipe refers to a type of
It's the rhythm.
rhythm
Yeah.
and coming
Yeah.
from Irish music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like there's the hornpipes, the jigs, and on
Right.
Reels
and
and
the
Yeah.
reels, but each one has a certain number of notes in the measure.
right, okay.
Now, I don't know if you guys heard this, but as we approached the second time around, Kalia started to harmonize with the melody, and that's what really gives it that interesting sound. It's a fullness.
So can we do that little piece again with the harmony a little slowed down so they can hear it? You think?
like
Can we
an
play it slow?
Why don't we play the whole thing again, just the way we did, so they can hear
Okay,
the
so they can hear
transition.
same tempo?
We can go a little bit slower, but
Okay.
we'll
So
play,
listen-
we'll
just
play
listen for
straight
it, how
together,
they're
and then
playing.
then Kalia will take the
Okay.
harmony.
So we're doing it 2 times through again?
We're gonna do the whole thing through the way we did the last
Okie
time.
dokie.
One time around?
So when you're going to harmonize with that, is that just something that you developed by ear to know where you're going to go, or is it something you worked out, or you know?
Harmony is kind of tricky stuff. I don't know. I grew up listening to all this kind of music, so I think I've developed sort of an ear for hearing that sort of thing. But then there's some songs that, yeah, you'll see it written out and you can learn it that way and be more precise about it that way. But,
Yeah, so you've sort of developed the language enough to understand
right.
how to embellish upon it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times, bluegrass bands will say, okay, I mean, pretty much in every set, they're going to say, all right, let's do a fiddle tune. So are a lot of bluegrass songs written on the fiddle first and then adapted to larger band? Or why do they say that?
Because there are fiddle tunes.
Yeah.
So what does that mean, fiddle tune, then? I mean, what is that?
They're just, there are certain songs that are just immediately associated with a fiddle. Fisher's hornpipe, that's not a banjo tune. Maybe it has to do with the, you know, its history and the style that it came from, but it's, you know, certain tunes are just out there and people just know them as they were designed as fiddle tunes. They were played more prominently as such. Nobody goes, you know, let's do fiddle tune, Foggy Mountain Breakdown. You go, no, that's not a fiddle tune, that's a banjo tune.
Yeah, there's just certain songs that are more appropriate for certain instruments, you know. But fiddle tunes, they're always instrumental tunes, which means there isn't any singing in them typically. It's,
Wow,
yeah.
I'm grateful for that every day.
Yeah, so it's just.
So what would you, so let's say you were doing a banjo tune, like, you know, Foggy Mountain Breakdown or something. What would your role be during a song like that? Would you sit out? Would you play any kind of rhythm, or, you know, like
double stops or
Fiddle's
anything like that? or-
fiddle's a great rhythm instrument.
Yeah.
I enjoy playing, I enjoy backing people up, because
Right.
I like the rhythm, you
Can you
know.
demonstrate that? Yeah.
You know, there's your standard sawing, you know.
Yeah, cool, yeah.
Yeah, I tend to do more like choppy stuff than, but you can, yeah, so, I don't know. Where you're sort of, for me anyway, I'm always at the base of the frog, doing that kind of thing.
That's cool, yeah.
It's great because you get to make your own drum set.
Totally, yeah, you're sort of mimicking the other instruments in a way. Like the mandolin, you can pretend you're chopping it there. And,
So you
That's-
talked about, the left hand, how there's no frets, but I mean, a big part of it seems like it must be a hard thing to get the bow working the right way. Does it take a long time to?
Took me a long time to learn how to double shuffle.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's different sort of techniques with the bow hand, different ways of,
I was amazed to find out how expensive bows can be. Like, what's a decent bow go for these days?
$150, $200 probably.
I've seen like, yeah,
Well, no,
like,
you can-
classical players, thousands of dollars
yeah,
for their bow.
yeah.
Absolutely.
definitely, yeah.
They'll put a lot of money into the bow.
You know, you can buy, starter bows that are made of synthetic materials for probably $50, $60, but they're a lot heavier. You need just the right kind of weight. You don't want something too light because you don't want to go flying out of your hand, but you don't want something too heavy because then it impedes your control.
Right.
Yeah, and in addition to the bow itself, you have this stuff called rosin that you have to put on it to make it sort of glide across the strings, otherwise it'll just shtick and won't make much noise.
I think if you're playing really fast, you'll start seeing the hairs flying
Oh,
off of
if you
the
break,
bow, right?
break the
Yeah.
hairs, yeah.
Adam, did you have a question?
Horsehair, yeah, it's typically what hair is used for the bow.
You said that you grew up like hearing this music, but like did you, or how did you find bluegrass and find the violin in the first place?
I didn't recognize it at a very early age, but I realized later on in life that I always liked anything that bounced. I like bluegrass, I like western swing, I like big band, I like old R&B and jazz, anything that's got, as I said before, that 2/4 beat, that thing that kind of makes you want to bounce like that. Bluegrass is very bouncy music, and before I found bluegrass, I used to listen to western swing, which actually western swing very heavily related because they use a lot of fiddles. A lot of the western swing tunes were jazzed or swingy versions of bluegrass and hillbilly tunes. Things come your way and you just go, hey, that sounds good, what is that? I had the benefit of meeting a lot of really great people in my life who were wonderful musicians and started to teach me things. I've kind of stuck with it since then. If it speaks to you, you're going to respond.
Anybody else?
Is there a difference between your fiddles?
The instruments themselves?
Yeah.
Not, I mean,
Mine was made, okay, mine was made in Brookfield, Connecticut, in 1921 by a William S. Todd. This is, and it's got a different look to it. Luthier, which is the guy who makes it, he probably kind of streamlined and avoided some of the real fine techniques for making something of that nature.
well, this actually isn't like a super fine violin or anything. But mine's like there's a lot of sort of reproductions of famous violins, you know, there's these violins called the Stradivarius violins, which are like infamous, you know, and so whoever made my violin was trying to replicate one of those.
How can you tell it looks sort of the same?
What's that?
How can you tell that he was replicating that?
It says it on the inside. There's this little thing that's like, yeah, that has the guy who made it and then like reproduction. Anyway, but
And the woods, look like they're a
different
different
woods,
kind of wood, is that?
different
you know,
varnishes, which is what they put on top of it.
Will that affect the sound of the violin as far
Oh,
as?
sure.
Definitely. Yeah, there's like warmer toned violins. This is more bright.
Yes, that's a more brilliant sounding one. This one is very mellow. When I play swing, this is the one I like to use because it's a lot mellower tone. Bluegrass likes to be bright and sharp and right out there.
Now, when you're playing in an ensemble such as like with the Western Swing, do you ever amplify? Do you ever
Oh, yeah.
go through? And so
Sure.
you have a take up for your.
Yeah, it's
on the
you
violin?
gotta compete with electric instruments. So,
Right.
and I like this one because it's naturally louder than most of the violins I've ever played. But still, I don't have that competitive edge. So I've got all kinds of them. Violinists search for years to find something that's going to replicate the sound, and probably my most recent acquisition is the best one. It's an actual microphone that clips on the tailpiece and hangs over the body. I have contact microphones that go on here. You can get as much volume out of them as you want, but you don't get the natural violin sound, and that's the thing you're looking for.
Yeah, speaking of amplification, they actually make electric violins too, which is kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, totally different sound, obviously. It
Yes.
doesn't sound like this at all, but you can, you know, plug in your
Right.
electric.
Sophia, you have a question?
What are the most commonly used woods to make them?
I don't know.
Spruce top, generally maple sides and back.
Very good.
And nobody has asked Kalia or Terry about,
Oh yeah, these are called shoulder rests. So it puts it like above your shoulder. I don't know if I can see that. So I don't know. Not all fiddlers or violinists play with them, but a lot of them do. It makes it so you can do this, you know, you can support it without holding it up.
Sometimes it helps in your dexterity. In other words, I never played with one of these until about 10 years ago. And I'm using a number 2, which is the space off of the body of the violin. I'm looking for a number 3. I want to get more distance off of it.
Yeah, I always do that too. I like ones that are further.
Right. You know, I can take this off and I can play down here, but it seems to crowd my left arm.
Right.
If I'm up here, I've got a little bit more freedom to move around.
Yeah.
does it change the sound?
Not
Some
really.
people, I've heard some people say that by not having as much contact with the violin, that it changes the sound, you know? Because you're not touching it much. I don't know.
Is that peculiar to fiddling as opposed to a classical, do classical violinists ever use that?
Most classical violinists, in fact, all classical violinists I know use the shoulder rest. And that has a lot to do with being able to support it without the use of his hand. So you have a lot more freedom.
I would love to hear another tune if you guys don't
We
mind.
have one more question.
Sure.
We have another
Yeah,
My
Caleb.
violin teacher, he has a gold string
Yeah?
for the E string. Can any other strings be gold string? Or is it just the E string?
The E string is the only one that isn't, what do you call it, wound. So the other strings, there's like the string itself, and then it has this extra stuff that goes around like that. The E string is the only one that doesn't have the extra stuff going around. So I don't think they make the other strings in.
I've never seen a steel manufactured string that had a solid string past the E, which is the highest string. I have actually seen sets where you apparently pay a lot of extra money to get a wound E, and I guess that's only because it's such a fine manufactured string. It's probably harder to make.
Yeah, before the violin was like in its current state, they used to make strings out of gut. That was interesting. And they still make them. What?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Do you ever break string while you're playing? Is that rare on a violin?
Your strings, you know, they wear out after a while. You have to change them. They get a little tired and stretched out and stuff. And you don't change them in time, then yeah, I've totally snapped strings before. It's kind of scary.
I'm just curious, how expensive are like a pack of violin strings? Are they-
Depends how specific you get, you know, like what kind of strings you want to get.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, let's hear something else, if you don't mind.
Let's see.
Do you want to ask your question first?
What's the difference between the gold string and the rest of them?
Yeah, I'm not, it's just the material that it's made out of. The thing is, there's different sizes. The strings are different sizes. The lowest one is bigger than the highest one.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's just what they're made of.
Similar to a guitar where, see, these are wound, right? But these top two are just plain steel. There's no wrapping around them.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that changes the sound of it?
Yeah, you can tell, like, you know, when your hand moves on it, it's kind of a, yeah, it does have a different sound. I mean, it's more metallic in a way. To me, I was wondering if maybe it's because that's such like a lyrical, you know, that the high string, you know, a lot of times, you know, for melody up at in the top range, you know, you want a specific kind of, you know, sound to it, you know. It might be a little too dark if it was wound.
Yeah, maybe so.
A wound string has more ring to it.
Uh-huh.
If
right.
you had a steel string all the way down here on the big fat G, it wouldn't have as much resonance, and it would just, it'd give you a cheaper sound.
Yeah.
Sure. This is another old standard fiddle tune.
This was the first fiddle tune that I ever learned, like when I was super duper little. I played it.
Violin, cabbage down, and egg.
There we go.
Yeah.
So, well, I just noticed that when the song's about to end, I noticed, Terry, that your leg goes up.
Oh,
So-
yeah, spastic reaction.
Yeah, no, but to me, who've never played these songs before, that signifies, okay, we're coming to the end. Is that, is that a common, you know, way of communicating amongst, in a bluegrass band? Or, I mean, how does one communicate? Or, and also, if you're going to trade improvisation, is there a lot of eye contact, or sort of how does one know when things are coming?
Well, there's no rule to it.
Right.
Me, I have awesome peripheral vision. I look off to the side and I can see when somebody's ready to do something.
Right.
Or I will lean in and look like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm giving it up. It's your turn.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
totally.
sure.
And the sticking out of the foot, that's totally the signal that the end of the song is coming.
Uh-huh.
That's just exactly what that means.
Right.
And yeah, as far as trading off breaks and stuff, there's sort of like a set amount of time that breaks are typically, and then so when you're nearing the end of that time, you typically look to whoever you want to play next, or they'll pick it up right after you.
Right.
Yeah.
In jazz improvisation, we say we're taking choruses, like, which is like the structure of the song. Is that kind of how it would work? Like go through the section a couple times, and then the next guy takes the solo, or is
Pretty
it,
much, yeah. Like in the song that we just played, there's different like formats that songs are in. In that case, there's an A part and a B part. And there's a lot of songs that are like that. And so in that one, you play 2 A's and 2 B's, and that's relatively typical. And so a whole break would consist of A, B, B, and then it's the next person's turn.
Yes,
What's
Sam?
the fastest song you know?
Oh, wasn't you?
The fastest one I know, that's, tough question. I mean, it's what you feel like doing. I mean, I do that song with I've done that with some other bands, and I mean,
Yeah, I mean you can speed up almost any song if you really want to.
I love playing fast.
Sometimes it's harder to play slow, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it takes
Yeah.
a lot more like control, and you have to be a little more sort of, I don't
Yeah.
know, just aware of it.
Reckless abandon is not necessarily always a bad thing.
Thank you very much for being here. Any final questions, anybody?
Ghee.
You mentioned the Scottish bagpipes earlier. How big a part did they play in the makeup of Bluegrass?
Fiddle is great at replicating bagpipes. I like to use that as a kind of as a backup when somebody else is playing, because it adds a fullness to the sound. Essentially, I'm playing two notes of the same pitch. It gives it, you know, it's two strings, fuller sound, and it kind of gives you that sound that the bagpipes, because bagpipes always have that one note that's always droning in the background. You know, it adds a fullness to it, and that's one thing that as a supporting player, when you're playing a supporting role in a song, you want to be able to give a fullness and foundation to the song so that the feature artist, you know, is sitting on top of a very large sound. You don't want to step on his toes and overbear, but you want to give it something with a lot of fullness, a lot of color.
There are a lot of sort of, you can tune the violin a little differently for some different types of music. A lot of old-time music you can detune, and a lot of those are a little more reminiscent of bagpipes too, because you can retune those.
One thing I noticed, somebody had asked about what a hornpipe is and a reel and all that. I think fiddle tunes in particular, you can clearly see that they were meant to be danced to. And hornpipes and reels are dances. And I mean, all bluegrass has a lot of rhythm and a beat, but I noticed fiddle tunes really make you want to get up and dance. And you know, as you said, it's got that 2/4 thing going.
And you can get a lot of syncopation going with the bow. So these are the secrets to give you that feeling like, yeah, I want to dance to that, I want to tap to that, I want to nod my head.
Yeah.
How about we'll finish up with red-haired boy.
Okay. There are two ways, by the way, you might watch how they're tuning. These pegs are kind of a larger tuning, would you say, and then...
Yeah, you have the pegs, and then you have your fine tuners, which are these little guys down here.
Teeny, teeny adjustments.
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for coming. We really
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you for
Thank you
having us.
guys.
Yeah.